The wedding planner who wasn't. The sniper team barely noticed the wedding planner adjusting floral centerpieces on the hillside terrace. Just another perfectionist event coordinator focused on table settings and photo opportunities. But when they moved to assassinate the senator during the ceremony and saw her neutralize 3 counter-snipers with precision handgun shots from 400 yards away, they realized their fatal mistake. "Lady, this doesn't concern you," the team leader radioed. Then she prevented a political coup in 6 minutes and 14 seconds. And what happened next stunned the Secret Service across 2 time zones. Welcome to Hidden Valor Stories. Before we dive into how a luxury wedding planner stopped an assassination that would have changed American politics forever, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe that the most dangerous people often wear the most elegant disguises, hit that subscribe button. These hidden stories of valor need to be told. The Chateau Montclair Vineyard in Napa Valley was the kind of venue that appeared in luxury wedding magazines and celebrity lifestyle features. Perched on rolling hills overlooking acres of pristine vineyards, the estate provided the perfect backdrop for high-profile weddings, where privacy, elegance, and security were equally important considerations. Victoria Sterling had been coordinating luxury weddings at Chateau Montclair for 5 years, her reputation built on an almost supernatural ability to execute flawless events under the most demanding circumstances. At 33, she possessed the kind of refined elegance that made wealthy clients trust her with their most important celebrations, while maintaining the organizational precision that kept complex events running smoothly despite inevitable complications. Her wedding planning portfolio included Silicon Valley executives, Hollywood celebrities, and political figures who required the kind of discretion and attention to detail that came with premium pricing and exclusive access. Victoria specialized in outdoor ceremonies that took advantage of Napa Valley's natural beauty while incorporating sophisticated elements that reflected her clients' social status and personal taste. The morning sun cast golden light across the vineyard as Victoria surveyed the ceremony setup one final time. Every detail had been meticulously planned and executed, from the hand-selected white roses that adorned the altar to the precisely positioned chairs that would accommodate 200 distinguished guests. The ceremony arch, crafted from locally sourced grapevines and adorned with cascading white orchids, provided the perfect focal point for what promised to be one of the most photographed weddings of the year. Victoria moved through the venue with practiced efficiency, adjusting floral arrangements with surgical precision and ensuring that every element contributed to the overall aesthetic vision. Her staff of 12 coordinators and vendors worked seamlessly under her direction, each understanding that perfection wasn't just expected, it was guaranteed when Victoria Sterling orchestrated an event. To everyone who worked with her professionally, Victoria was exactly what a luxury wedding planner should be. Impeccably dressed in a tailored cream blazer and pearl accessories, endlessly patient with demanding clients, creative in solving logistical challenges, and completely focused on ensuring that every detail contributed to an unforgettable celebration. But beneath her refined exterior, Victoria maintained a level of situational awareness that would have impressed federal security specialists. She unconsciously noted sightlines, identified potential choke points in guest movement, and positioned herself where she could maintain visual oversight of the entire venue. Old habits from a previous life that most people would never suspect. What none of them knew was that Victoria's real name was Agent Victoria Sterling, and for 10 years she had been one of the Secret Service's most effective counter-sniper specialists. Victoria's transition from Secret Service to wedding planning hadn't been voluntary. A training accident during presidential protection exercises had damaged her left shoulder, ending her career in federal law enforcement with a medical retirement that came with commendations for exceptional service and a disability rating that didn't reflect the psychological impact of leaving work that had defined her identity. The accident had occurred during a classified training exercise at the Secret Service's Beltsville facility, where agents practiced high-stress scenarios that replicated real-world threats against protectees. Victoria had been participating in a counter-sniper drill when a mechanical failure with repelling equipment had sent her crashing into a concrete barrier, tearing ligaments and fracturing bones in her dominant shooting arm. During the 18 months of rehabilitation that followed, Victoria had struggled not just with physical therapy, but with the psychological trauma of losing her purpose. For 10 years, Her identity had been built around protecting others, using skills that few people possessed to defend against threats that most Americans would never know existed. The medical retirement felt like a death sentence for someone whose self-worth was entirely tied to her professional capabilities. Her Secret Service career had been extraordinary by any measure. She had protected 3 different presidents during international summits where intelligence agencies had detected credible assassination threats. Her assignments had included the G7 summit in Canada, where 3 separate terrorist organizations had attempted to infiltrate the security perimeter, and the climate change conference in Copenhagen, where an anarchist network had planned coordinated attacks against multiple world leaders. Victoria's specialized training had gone far beyond standard Secret Service protocols. She had completed advanced courses in counter-sniper operations, tactical medicine, and behavioral threat assessment that were offered only to agents with the highest security clearances. Her marksmanship instructors had noted that she possessed an almost supernatural ability to read environmental conditions and calculate ballistic trajectories under pressure that would break most federal agents. Her most significant assignment had been 18 months as part of the counter-assault team, an elite unit that responded to direct attacks against protectees with overwhelming tactical force. The CAT team operated with equipment and authorities that exceeded those of typical Secret Service details, and Victoria's precision shooting abilities had made her invaluable during operations where split-second accuracy could determine whether protected officials lived or died. But the psychological profile of someone trained for life-or-death decision-making didn't translate easily to civilian employment. During her rehabilitation, Victoria had discovered that most career transition programs for federal agents assumed they would move into related fields: private security, law enforcement consulting, or corporate protective services. None of these options appealed to someone whose injury had made traditional security work impossible. Event planning had emerged as an unexpected solution during a conversation with her physical therapist, who mentioned that her attention to detail and ability to coordinate complex operations might translate well to wedding coordination. The suggestion had initially seemed absurd. How could someone trained to prevent assassinations find fulfillment in arranging flower displays? But as Victoria researched the luxury event planning industry, she began to recognize similarities between her federal service and high-end wedding coordination. Both required advanced reconnaissance of venues, risk assessment for potential problems, contingency planning for multiple scenarios, and the ability to maintain calm professionalism when circumstances became chaotic. Her wedding planning credentials had been earned through an accelerated program designed for career changers, but her real expertise came from applying federal security protocols to civilian celebrations. Her venue selections were always made with tactical considerations: sightlines, egress routes, emergency response access, disguised as aesthetic preferences. Victoria's vendor relationships included contacts who could provide services that most event coordinators would never need. Her preferred photographers had security clearances from previous work at diplomatic events. Her catering staff included personnel trained in recognizing suspicious behavior. Even her floral suppliers had experience with venues that required background checks and confidentiality agreements. Over 5 years, her reputation had grown among clients who required more than typical wedding planning services. Political figures, tech executives, and entertainment industry leaders were drawn to Victoria's indefinable quality that made their celebrations feel secure, even when they couldn't articulate why. She charged premium rates not just for her organizational abilities, but for a level of professional discretion that exceeded normal hospitality industry standards. This morning's wedding was routine by Chateau Montclair's standards, but significant by political measures. Senator Rebecca Morrison was marrying tech entrepreneur David Chen in a ceremony that combined political networking with Silicon Valley power connections. The guest list included 3 other senators, 2 tech CEOs, a federal judge, and various political operatives whose presence made the event strategically important beyond its personal significance. Victoria had spent 6 weeks coordinating every detail of the Morrison-Chen wedding, ensuring that the outdoor ceremony would showcase Napa Valley's natural beauty while accommodating the security requirements that came with high-profile political guests. The setup included elevated terraces for optimal photography, sophisticated audio systems for the ceremony, and carefully planned logistics for managing a guest list that included people whose safety was a matter of national security. Senator Morrison's own security detail had coordinated with local law enforcement and private security contractors to establish protection protocols that wouldn't interfere with the wedding's elegant atmosphere. But Victoria's Secret Service training had taught her to assess threats that conventional security might miss. At 2:47 as guests began arriving for the 4 p.m. ceremony, Victoria noticed something that triggered every threat assessment protocol developed through 10 years of presidential protection. 3 men with professional photography equipment had positioned themselves on hillsides surrounding the wedding venue, their location and equipment consistent with media coverage, but wrong in ways that most people would miss. Their camera lenses were too long for wedding photography. Their positions provided tactical advantage rather than optimal photo angles, and their movement patterns suggested coordination rather than independent media coverage. Victoria's trained eye immediately recognized the tactical significance of their positioning. The 3 locations formed a perfect triangle of overlapping fields of fire that would provide comprehensive coverage of the wedding ceremony from multiple angles with no blind spots, exactly the kind of setup that counter-sniper teams used for high-value target elimination. The first photographer had established himself approximately 450 yards northeast of the ceremony terrace, using a cluster of oak trees as both concealment and support for his equipment. His position provided an unobstructed view of the altar area while remaining invisible to ground-level observation. Victoria noted that his camera equipment included a tripod rated for weights far exceeding normal photography gear, suggesting additional equipment beyond what was visible. The second man had positioned himself 400 yards due west, utilizing the vineyard's irrigation building as both concealment and elevated platform. His location offered perfect line of sight for precision shooting during the ceremony's key moments, while providing immediate access to service roads that would allow rapid extraction after mission completion. The third operative controlled the southern approach, approximately 375 yards from the altar, positioned behind decorative stonework that appeared to be landscaping but actually provided perfect shooting rest and protection from counter-sniper engagement. Victoria continued arranging floral centerpieces on the ceremony terrace while tracking the photographer's positions through her peripheral vision. One of the photographers adjusted his position to get a better angle on the wedding arch where Senator Morrison would be standing during the ceremony. But Victoria's tactical training recognized that his new position provided perfect line of sight for precision shooting rather than improved photography. After directing Mrs. Chen to the pre-ceremony reception, Victoria moved to her coordination station, a discreet command post disguised as a wedding planning workspace, but actually equipped with communication systems that most event coordinators didn't possess. "Control, this is Rose Garden," Victoria spoke quietly into a communication device hidden among her event planning materials. "I have 3 hostile snipers establishing overwatch positions for target elimination during ceremony, requesting immediate threat assessment and tactical support authorization." The response came within 90 seconds. "Rose Garden, intelligence confirms credible assassination threat against Senator Morrison. Local security has been compromised. You are authorized for independent action to protect political personnel. Rules of engagement are weapons-free." Victoria felt the familiar surge of operational focus that she hadn't experienced since her medical retirement. Her cover role as elegant wedding planner was about to be replaced by 10 years of Secret Service training in counter-sniper operations and protective services under hostile conditions. The attack was scheduled to begin at 4:15 p.m. during the exchange of vows when Senator Morrison would be stationary and clearly visible to the sniper teams positioned on the surrounding hillsides. At 4:12 p.m., the first sniper's shot rang out across the vineyard. The distinctive crack of high-velocity rifle fire shattered the peaceful atmosphere of the outdoor ceremony with devastating psychological impact. The sound echoed off the surrounding hills, creating confusion about the direction and number of shooters. Wedding guests, who moments earlier had been focused on the romantic ceremony, suddenly found themselves in the middle of what appeared to be a coordinated attack on their celebration. Panic spread through the gathered crowd with terrifying speed. Women in elegant evening gowns dove behind overturned chairs, their formal wear making their desperate movements awkward and ineffective. Men in expensive suits attempted to shield their companions while seeking cover behind decorative elements that had been designed for aesthetics rather than protection. The carefully arranged seating that Victoria had spent weeks perfecting became obstacles in guests' frantic attempts to reach safety. Senator Morrison, resplendent in her wedding dress, stood frozen at the altar as her security detail struggled to respond to a threat they had never anticipated during their advance planning. Her new husband, tech entrepreneur David Chen, instinctively moved to protect his bride, but neither of them understood the tactical situation developing around their wedding ceremony. The sound of gunfire during what should have been a peaceful ceremony created immediate chaos that threatened to turn into a stampede. Wedding guests screamed and scattered, seeking cover behind whatever structures were available. Crystal glasses shattered as guests knocked over cocktail tables in their desperation to escape. Elegant floral arrangements were trampled underfoot as formal attire became an impediment to rapid movement. Agent Martinez, Senator Morrison's lead protection officer, experienced something that his training had never prepared him for: complete sensory overload during a scenario that exceeded all established protocols for protective service operations. His tactical response training had focused on ground-level threats, vehicle attacks, and close-quarters situations. A coordinated sniper attack from multiple elevated positions during a civilian event with hundreds of potential casualties was beyond the scope of conventional Secret Service procedures. Martinez's paralysis was understandable from a psychological standpoint, but tactically disastrous for the people depending on his protection. His weapon remained holstered while his mind attempted to process a situation that challenged everything he understood about threat response during protective operations. The frozen protection officer represented a catastrophic failure of the security system that was supposed to keep Senator Morrison alive during public appearances. Senator Morrison's security detail struggled to respond to threats they hadn't anticipated from multiple elevated positions. Their training had focused on crowd control, vehicle security, and close-range protection scenarios. None of them had experience with counter-sniper operations that required specialized equipment and tactics they didn't possess. Victoria saw Martinez's weapon, a Glock 19 in a shoulder holster, accessible but unused as the protection officer remained locked in place by the shock of the sniper attack. His paralysis was creating a tactical vacuum that threatened to result in casualties among the wedding guests and the failure of his primary mission to protect Senator Morrison. Without hesitation, Victoria moved toward the frozen agent with the fluid motion of someone who had trained for exactly this scenario countless times. Her approach appeared to be a wedding coordinator trying to help during an emergency, but her movement pattern followed tactical protocols for weapon acquisition under hostile fire. "Agent Martinez, I need your sidearm," Victoria said with command authority that hadn't been present during 5 years of coordinating flower arrangements and seating charts. Martinez looked at her with the expression of someone processing an impossible situation. The elegant wedding planner was speaking with federal law enforcement terminology and requesting access to his service weapon during an active sniper attack. "Ma'am, you need to take cover. This is—" Martinez began, but Victoria cut him off. "Agent Martinez, I'm former Secret Service counter-sniper. Senator Morrison is still exposed and your team is out of position. I need your weapon now." The authority in her voice and the precision of her tactical assessment cut through Martinez's shock. He drew his Glock 19 and handed it to Victoria, understanding that someone with actual operational experience needed to take control of a situation that had exceeded normal protection protocols. Victoria immediately conducted a tactical assessment of the weapon: full magazine, chambered round, familiar grip and sight picture from years of federal service training. The Glock 19 specifications were burned into her memory from countless hours of qualification and operational use. 9mm Luger ammunition, 15-round magazine capacity, 4.02-inch barrel length, and ballistic characteristics that she understood not as theoretical data, but as practical tools for engaging threats under various environmental conditions. The familiar weight in her hands brought back muscle memory from thousands of hours on federal firing ranges, where precision shooting had been refined to an art form through repetitive training that exceeded what most law enforcement officers would experience in their entire careers. Victoria's weapons proficiency had been legendary during her Secret Service career, consistently scoring in the top percentile of all federal agents during quarterly qualifications. Her first engagement was against the sniper positioned 400 yards uphill from the wedding terrace, using a cluster of oak trees as both concealment and support for his precision rifle system. The hostile had established an excellent tactical position with clear sight lines to the ceremony altar, while remaining invisible to ground-level observation. His elevation advantage provided him with the kind of shooting position that military snipers trained years to effectively utilize. Using the wedding arch as a stabilizing rest, Victoria acquired the target through the Glock standard white dot sights and applied the precision shooting techniques that had made her one of the Secret Service's most effective counter-sniper specialists. The ornate grapevine and orchid arch, which had been designed as a romantic focal point for the ceremony, became an improvised shooting platform that provided the stability necessary for extreme-range precision shooting. The distance represented the absolute limit of what was possible with a standard service pistol in the hands of even the most skilled operator. Most law enforcement officers considered 50 yards the practical limit for accurate handgun shooting, and military doctrine generally limited pistol engagements to 25 yards or less. Victoria was attempting a shot that exceeded normal tactical parameters by more than 800%. At 400 yards, a 9mm bullet fired from a Glock 19 would drop approximately 78 inches below the line of sight, requiring massive elevation compensation that pushed the weapon's sighting system beyond its intended parameters. Environmental factors, including wind speed, air density, and temperature gradients, would cause additional deviations that had to be calculated and compensated for in real time under extreme pressure. The ballistic calculations required for the shot were complex beyond what most federal agents would attempt, even under controlled conditions with unlimited time and specialized equipment. Victoria had to account for bullet drop, wind drift caused by the 8 crosswind coming from the northwest, the target's subtle movement as he adjusted his shooting position, and the psychological pressure of knowing that innocent lives depended on her precision. Her breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm she had mastered during advanced federal training courses designed to replicate high-stress operational conditions. Her heart rate dropped to the minimal level that eliminated even microscopic tremors from affecting her aim, a physiological state that separated exceptional shooters from merely competent ones. This was a condition where physics, training, and instinct merged into supernatural accuracy that existed at the very edge of human capability. Victoria's shooting stance utilized the wedding arch's structural elements to create a stable platform that approached the stability of specialized sniper equipment used by military and law enforcement precision shooters. Her grip pressure, sight alignment, and trigger control were textbook perfect, applying techniques that had been developed through decades of federal law enforcement experience and refined through classified training programs that most agents never accessed. The shot rang out across the vineyard with distinctive authority that differed markedly from the rifle fire that had initiated the attack. The 9mm round traveled over 12,200 feet in approximately 0.7 seconds, maintaining lethal velocity despite the extreme distance and atmospheric conditions that would normally render such a shot impossible with a standard service pistol. The bullet struck the first sniper center mass, his precision rifle system dropping from position as he collapsed behind his concealment. Victoria's shot had found its mark with the kind of precision that challenged everything federal agents thought they understood about the limitations of service weapons in the hands of even highly trained operators. The technical achievement of hitting a human-sized target at 400 yards with a standard Glock 19 was virtually unprecedented in federal law enforcement history. Victoria's shot represented the convergence of exceptional training, ideal environmental conditions, improvised equipment stabilization, and the kind of precision shooting that existed at the absolute edge of what was physically possible for human beings to achieve. Before the first target had finished falling, Victoria was already moving to engage the second position, using tactical movement principles that appeared to panicked guests as someone seeking better cover, but actually positioned her for optimal engagement angles against the remaining threats. Her movement across the chaotic wedding venue demonstrated the difference between routine security training and specialized federal counterterrorism experience that had been developed through years of high-risk operational assignments. The second sniper was adjusting his position to compensate for his teammate's elimination when Victoria's movement brought her into firing position behind decorative vineyard equipment that provided both concealment from hostile observation and weapon stability for precision shooting. The irrigation building and associated equipment had been installed for agricultural purposes, but provided excellent tactical cover for someone with Victoria's training in urban warfare techniques. Her second engagement was technically more challenging than the first shot, a moving target at extended range requiring predictive shooting that combined mathematical calculation with intuitive understanding of human movement patterns developed through years of tactical training. The hostile was attempting to relocate while maintaining his ability to engage Senator Morrison, creating a complex targeting problem that required Victoria to predict his movement while compensating for all the ballistic factors that affected her first shot. Victoria led the target by exactly the calculated amount, compensating for his evasive movement pattern, the bullet's flight time over the extended distance, and the slight upward angle that affected trajectory calculations differently than her first engagement. The precision required for hitting a moving target at that distance with a handgun approached the theoretical limits of what was possible given the weapon system's capabilities and environmental constraints. The hostile was attempting to acquire Senator Morrison as a target when Victoria's shot found its mark with devastating precision. Her bullet struck him in the upper torso, eliminating the threat before he could complete his targeting sequence and engage the primary protectee. The precision required for hitting a moving target at that distance with a standard service pistol was virtually unprecedented in federal law enforcement history, representing a level of marksmanship that exceeded what most agents achieved during their entire careers. The third sniper was beginning to implement withdrawal protocols when Victoria's tactical awareness identified his location through muzzle flash signature and scope reflection analysis, skills that had been developed during advanced counter-sniper training that few federal agents ever received. Her ability to locate hostile positions through minimal visual indicators demonstrated the specialized training that separated elite operators from conventional law enforcement personnel. Her final engagement required tactical movement to gain line of sight while maintaining accuracy under the pressure of protecting a high-value political target whose assassination could have significant implications for American domestic policy. The third hostile had observed the elimination of his teammates and was attempting to complete his mission while implementing escape procedures, creating a time-sensitive targeting problem that required immediate resolution. Victoria's approach utilized the wedding venue's elevated terraces as tactical advantage, positioning herself where the sniper's retreat route became predictable, and his defensive options were limited by terrain features that he hadn't anticipated during his operational planning. She moved with the fluid efficiency of someone who had trained for urban counter-sniper operations in environments where civilian safety was the primary consideration and collateral damage was unacceptable. Her third shot eliminated the final threat just as the hostile was preparing to engage Senator Morrison's security detail, who were finally responding with coordination appropriate to the threat level they faced. The bullet struck him precisely as he was attempting to acquire a target, preventing what could have been a prolonged firefight that might have resulted in civilian casualties among the wedding guests who had not yet reached secure positions. Victoria's 3 shots had been delivered with the kind of precision that redefined what federal agents thought was possible with standard service weapons under operational conditions. Each engagement had required calculations and techniques that existed at the absolute edge of human capability, applied under pressure that could have affected the balance of American political power and international diplomatic relationships. Total elapsed time from first hostile shot to neutralization of all 3 snipers, 6 minutes and 14 seconds. Senator Morrison's official security detail was still coordinating their response when Victoria was already confirming that all assassination positions had been neutralized and the ceremony could proceed safely. "Senator, the photography situation has been resolved," Victoria reported through discreet communication channels. "All positions are secure and the ceremony can begin as scheduled." The wedding proceeded flawlessly, with guests unaware that they had just witnessed one of the most professional counter-sniper operations in Secret Service history, executed by someone they assumed was focused on flower arrangements and seating charts. But Senator Morrison requested a private meeting with Victoria immediately after the reception, as guests were departing and the venue was being reset for the evening celebration. "Agent Sterling," the senator said quietly, using Victoria's real title for the first time. "I know who you are and what you just prevented. That wasn't just an assassination attempt. Intelligence suggests it was part of a broader operation to eliminate multiple political figures who support the infrastructure bill." Victoria maintained her professional composure. "Senator, I don't know what you mean. I'm a wedding planner who happened to notice some photographers in inappropriate positions and took action to ensure the ceremony proceeded without disruption. Senator Morrison smiled. Of course, and I'm just a bride who happened to have the most security-conscious wedding planner in California coordinating my special day. The investigation revealed that the assassination attempt had been coordinated by interests opposed to Senator Morrison's infrastructure legislation, with her elimination designed to shift the political balance on a vote that could affect billions in federal spending. The three snipers had been part of a larger network targeting multiple congressional supporters of the bill. Victoria returned to her wedding planning duties, where clients began requesting her services based on recommendations from political figures who couldn't publicly discuss why they trusted her with their most important celebrations. Her reputation in the luxury wedding industry grew beyond her organizational abilities to include an indefinable quality that made high-profile clients feel secure during their most vulnerable public moments. 6 months later, Victoria received a small package with congressional markings. Inside was a handwritten note from Senator Morrison. To the woman who gave me the perfect wedding and saved my life with equal grace, the infrastructure bill passed 51-49. Thank you for ensuring I was there to cast the deciding vote. Victoria placed the note in her office safe, along with commendations and challenge coins from her Secret Service career that reminded her why some skills were worth maintaining, even when your official title had changed to event coordinator. She continued planning luxury weddings at Chateau Montclair, but now her services included discreet security consultation for high-profile clients who required protection that went beyond conventional event security. Her vendor network expanded to include specialists who could provide capabilities that most wedding planners would never need, and her venue selection criteria incorporated tactical considerations that ensured her clients' celebrations would be both elegant and secure. Because that's what hidden